I would like to ask our panelists who are going to talk about a couple of different things. I mentioned, if you guys can go ahead, you guys come up and work your way to the stage. So some of the things that I've talked about are kind of the building blocks of our future economy, right? So mixed use developments, we're going to see, a few of those, kind of as we move forward. Distribution and industrial, which are not as exciting as mixed use developments, obviously, but as we talk here, we want to inform you guys about why these things are helpful and why they're critical and what they can provide for the future. And then finally, entrepreneurship. We've really taken a stab at making sure that entrepreneurship is a big part of what we do through the Launch Garner campaign and other things, and that's what kind of we'll talk about. So first up, I would like to introduce Christopher Weeks with Wake Tech. He's Director of Entrepreneurship at Wake Tech. Thanks for being here, Chris. Justin Parker, who's with Al.Neyer doing Business Park 70. And then Grady Matthews, who is with Wycliff Development doing the E-District. So gentlemen, thanks for joining us. I will turn it over to Chris right now to go ahead and do his presentation. There you go.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, sure. You're welcome to stand.
Hello, everyone. I'm welcome to stand. That's cool. I'm Chris Weeks with Wake Tech. I'm the Director of Entrepreneurship. I am new in my role. Actually, yesterday was my 91st day, which means there's a new process in order for me to no longer be at Wake Tech, which is pretty cool. So what I want to talk to you about today is Launch Garner. Launch Garner is in its second iteration, its second cohort. So the Launch program is a program that was developed by Launch My City by the Rotary out in Detroit, Michigan. And its design was to develop a program that helped directly with small businesses in municipalities and give it an opportunity to go through a process to where you would actually walk away with not only good information, but a living, breathing business plan. So with that, Katie Gales, who is my predecessor at Wake Tech, and Matthew Kane from the Rotary in Raleigh, decided to bring the Launch program to Wake County. And as of now, when we bring Fuquay and Zebulon on board, we will have all 12 municipalities here in Wake County participating in the Launch program. At the end of this cohort, in the end of the fall, we will have put through 700 small businesses over the past 7 years. So before we get started, definitely want to give a shout out to the participants and to the support system with Launch. So Wake Tech, we're responsible for the training component. So we handle developing the curriculum, choosing what we're going to teach and what is important to the small businesses. And then we hire the instructors and ensure that they get paid. But on top of that, there's a host of other things that need to happen in order for the program to go smoothly. So the Garner Economic Development, Historic Downtown Garner, the City of Garner, Rotary, the Chamber, and the other Rotary Garner Midday are all contributors to the program. Now, it mentioned earlier about the partnership between the Chamber and the town. It's a big deal because there are some municipalities that are still relying solely on the town itself or solely on some of the community partners like the Chamber or the Rotary or what have you. So Garner, by far, my experience has been that the partnership that they have has given a very robust set of a very robust support system to ensure that the entrepreneurs that go through the program have an opportunity to succeed. So thank you to all of the partners. So, we have a flash. So as I mentioned, here's what, as of 2021, here are all of the programs that we've run up until now. As of 2021, we had 511 participants, and in 2022, we're actually putting 179 learners through, and that's going to put us right at about 700 over the course of, or by the end of the year. And again, all of these small businesses have an opportunity to go through this program, and guess how much it costs a small business? $0. So it's a free program, and we already have begun to see the results. There are actually 2 programs that have gone through the launch program, as well as the Contractors Academy that are approaching $1 million in revenue already. So it's definitely worth mentioning and lauding. The structure, it is a joint effort between the schools and between the municipalities. There is a board, there are town boards and volunteers, there's a leadership team. Each advisory board has different capacities that they operate in. You have a mentorship component of the launch program, and after the 10 weeks of instruction, there's a following on component where mentors in the community are placed in relationship to the learners and give them an opportunity to work together to continue to develop a relationship. Now, the launch alumni is everyone who has gone through the program, and at this point, after this class, we'll be right at around 700. So not only is it cool to say we have all of these alumni, but it creates a great resource for all of the newer businesses and also the aspiring entrepreneurs. The communications and activities, we have an alumni Facebook group, we have a monthly gazette, we have a e-blast that goes out, and then we also spotlight members in our spotlight program. In addition to that, we do workshops, and then we do have an annual reunion. And then the other benefits is the Rally Fund for Small Businesses, and then a graphic design practicum. And in addition to that, we started something last year called the Main Street Entrepreneurship Accelerator, in which we gave away $85,000 in a pitch contest. So for small businesses, that's a big deal. The top prize last year was $20,000. This year, the top prize is going to be $35,000. So when a small business is trying to get their feet under them, $35,000 is a great way to start, and not in a loan, but in a grant. Doesn't that sound good? Again, the curriculum is based on the Launch My City model, which is created by the Rotary Club out in Detroit. It is the fast track curriculum, which is done by the Kauffman Foundation that spent millions of dollars developing the curriculum. We use a program called Live Plan from Palo Alto Software to capture all of the unique data for each small business that's participating, and gives them an opportunity to walk away not only with a hard copy of a business plan, but in an electronic format as well that can be adjusted regularly. Because as we attempt to teach regularly, the business plan is something that isn't constructed and then put away. It's something that should continue to be worked on and tweaked and everything over the course of the business life. The instructors and program managers work together along with Wake Tech to ensure that the curriculum and the strategies and delivery are all done in a great manner. The instructor is Latanya Dubois. She is actually working on teaching her 7th cohort, and she's doing an amazing job. So apparently it's going to auto turn off. We don't want that to happen. And that does it for me, and thank you very much.
And let's get this guy's face off the screen. There we go. Okay, hey, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Justin Parker. I'm with a real estate developer called Al.Neyer, resident of the Triangle, also a proud member of the Garner Chamber, and thrilled to be a member and board member of the Garner Chamber, and thrilled to be with you here today. It's nice to follow Matthew and Christopher. First of all, I don't know about y'all, they got me pretty fired up about the exciting stuff that's happening here in Garner. But when we think about successful real estate development projects, I think about successful real estate development projects. It's not just about the land and the buildings. It's about the community behind those projects. It's about entrepreneurship, having catalysts for folks that are starting businesses, that are creating jobs, that are making investments in the community. It's also about having a strong chamber, having that business support, having, as Matthew said, having an active chamber who's actively involved in business recruitment. It's also about having really strong local political leadership and folks that are willing to stand behind projects, and I'll talk about that here in a couple of minutes. Before I get to our project, Garner Business Park 70, I have to do this shameless commercial for my company, Al.Neyer, and just tell you a little bit about us and how we got here to today. So my company is headquartered in Cincinnati, Ohio. We've been in business since 1894, so over 120 years, long and successful track record of industrial office, medical office, and multifamily development. We've been employee-owned since 2014, have over 200 employees now, and we've been expanding geographically in the 2000s. First, we went from Cincinnati to Pittsburgh, then to Nashville, and then to Raleigh in May of 2019. I was hired as employee number 1 in the Triangle office. We're up to 21 employees here now, and you can't really tell our story of moving to the Triangle and of investing in the Triangle without talking about Garner, because this is where it all started for us with Garner Business Park 70. I know some of you, I think, got to see it on the bus tour today. I know looking at industrial real estate is like really exciting and riveting. It gets me fired up. It's okay if it doesn't get you fired up, but that was where it all started for us here. That was our first investment in the market, and we've now constructed or have under development about 3 million square feet from as far east as Smithfield, west to Greensboro. Back when we were first evaluating Garner, I'll tell you just a couple funny local stories. So again, companies headquartered in Cincinnati, Ohio, and so when I was hired in 2019, my leadership, so CEO, president, CFO were coming down. They were visiting the market with me, evaluating this Garner opportunity, and I picked them up from the airport on one of their first visits, and I think they were expecting me to immediately go into real estate and start talking about sites. And we got in the car, and I didn't pull off yet, and I sat there and I said, team, there are 2 really important things you need to know about doing business in the Triangle. I said, first, it's the Triangle. It's not Raleigh, it's not Durham, it's not Chapel Hill, it's not about just Garner or Cary or Apex. It's the Triangle, a consistent theme you heard from Matthew earlier. So I said, you can't go meet with Mayor Mashburn and talk about opening a Raleigh office. We're opening a Triangle office, guys. I said, okay, I got it. I said, there's another really important one. You got to be careful about the colors that you wear, okay? I said, if there's a certain shade of red, there's 2 certain shades of blue, there's a shade of purple that really resonate with people in this community, and you need to be darn sure about who you're sitting across from the table from as you walk in a meeting, because that meeting can end before it ever starts. And they got it, thankfully. So that led, after that conversation, we cruised down to Garner and looked at this site, which is Garner Business Park 70, right across from the CBC Towers and Camping World, just southeast of Interstate 40 and the future 540. And I can throw stats and company logos and exciting stuff about the project at you, but this project really comes down to one simple word and theme, and that was partnership, okay? So we pulled up to this site. It wasn't hard to see the opportunity. And I'd love to tell you, like, developing industrial real estate is really complicated. It's not. It's 4 walls and a roof, right? What is complicated, though, is finding really good partners. And so this was a 50-acre site that 540 was coming to shortly and was close to Interstate 40. The industrial opportunity was clear, but the site lacked one really important thing, and it didn't have any sewer. And I don't care what your business is, where you live, if you can't flush a toilet, you can't do much. And we embarked on a public-private partnership with the Town of Garner to bring sewer to the site. And it was a significant investment on behalf of the Garner. Went before council and public hearings. I know Mayor Mashburn, you were part of that. And this site, so I will tell you some stats now. So $70 million in total investment, have recruited, as Matthew mentioned, some really high quality companies, Fortune 500 companies to Garner that are creating great jobs. Our investment, none of that happens. The company's investments, the jobs don't happen without a great partner. So Mayor Mashburn, John, thank you, because we wouldn't be here today without you. It's been a very successful project. We'll get a little bit more into the weeds on it, but thrilled to be in Garner. Happy to be here with you today. Thank you for your time.
All right, thanks, Justin. And now I'd like to introduce Grady Matthews to talk about the E-District. Thanks. Yes, one to the right, but if you need me to advance the slide, I can do that over here.
Thank you. I'm just sitting here thinking about how terrified my daughter would be that somebody put me on stage with lights and a microphone. I sing around the house, and I've been told multiple times I'm not very good at it, so if I break out here in a minute, you guys give me a good report. I don't really try to hide the fact that I wear bright red a lot. My wife went to UNC, which only means that I keep my mouth shut during basketball season. But I am with Wycliff Development. Wycliff Development is actually the name of the street that I grew up on in Raleigh, but I have roots here close by. My mother grew up on a farm on the corner of Highway 50 and Highway 42, and she actually was a school teacher at East Garner across the street from this development when I was ages 0 to 5. So I would come down here on teacher work days and play in the gym and have fond memories of being in Garner. So I think everybody knows where the site is, and I know that we're going to talk more about it a little bit later. This is a very, very unique site for Garner, Wake County, and really the region, simply because it's a large site. I don't know, and I think, Justin, you probably would agree with me on this. I don't know if there is a site anywhere on the eastern seaboard that is at the corner of four, or soon to be four major corridors, 4-lane corridors, that's a stone's throw from a major interstate. So the possibilities that brings to the area are vast. I know that Matthew talked about this being, the hope being that Garner would be a regional location. The possibilities for a 225-acre site that's already zoned commercial mixed use are kind of endless. So it's very, very important to us that we do it the right way and that we add value to the town of Garner and the region. So this is the site. I won't spend much time on it because I know we're going to talk about it a little bit later, but folks are pretty familiar with the area, know that Cabela's is catty corner on the other side of Highway 70. And White Oak Crossing, which of course is a large Target anchored, Kohl's anchored, BJ's anchored community center. I'm not doing this right. And this is just kind of a plan that we did really out of the gate, and I'll speak more about it a little bit later. We hired a firm out of RTP, O'Brien Atkins, to do some conceptual planning for us. And the first thing that we did was just kind of take a look at what the infrastructure of the plan would look like and then put the uses that we thought would fit best in this region on top of that plan. So it's hard to see perhaps the writing down in the bottom right-hand corner, but really what we tried to do with this site was come up with something that's not in North Carolina yet, really. Matter of fact, I don't even know that it's in a 4-state region, but we really wanted to create a medical mixed-use theme. My background is mixed-use development. It has been since the early 90s. But medical mixed use is kind of the buzz now in the country, and there's only a few of them. There's one in Florida. There's a couple in the Dallas area. And we, from day one, have felt like the need for this area could be met by medical mixed use. So if you look at the plan from a color standpoint, it's hard to tell between the purple and the blue, at least it is for me. But the blue is more the medical hub of what would be a mixed-use center. The purple is more of your lifestyle. You've heard the work, play, live, or I have that backwards, with shops, residential. And then there's probably going to be some ancillary uses to the medical that would just kind of go around the site. Some residential, some, more in the line of medical and office. Because it's a big site, there's no rush in getting it done. We want to do it the right way to add value. So it's conceivably a 10 to 12 year project from start to finish. This is just a very conceptual site plan with the uses and the colored coordinated uses on top of it. And that is a very, very fancy aerial that a really good architect can do on a computer in about 15 minutes that cost a whole lot of money to pay for, but at the end of the day, it's just something to show folks and say it might look like this one day. But it does give an idea of the magnitude of the project. It truly is something that can create value to the town from a standpoint of bringing businesses, employment, tax base. It's truly a regional site, and we're excited about doing it. And there is another view looking back at I-40 Cloverleaf, and that's all I got.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Grady. Give him a round of applause to the panelists, please. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and start, Grady, with you. I'm going to go ahead and throw out the tough question, right? So traffic, right? So the question we always get at White Oak right now is there's lots of traffic already. And then you guys are building, obviously a large-scale development is planned there. What's the prognosis for the traffic over there as you take a big drink of water before you answer that one?
No, it's a great question and an anticipated question. I think I'm not gonna bait and switch the question, right. So I'll give you the good news.
Which means he's gonna bait and switch the question.
I think one of the things about having an infrastructure as large as what we have is that you're going to be able to mitigate a lot of the traffic because you're going to be adding corridors. So if you look at our site plan, it looks pretty nice, and it looks like a lot of time was spent on it. But the reality is the DOT curb cuts were already in place. So there are two corridors that will run through the middle of the property that will help mitigate the traffic. So if you have all the cars on one road, now you're going to have cars on three roads. So we hope that that's going to be the case. Now, with that said, and this is where I don't want to bait and switch anyone, we're going to be across the street from a Cabela's and a regional shopping center. The month of December is the month of December. And I get tickled because I know we talk about that, yet we're the ones out in the middle of the traffic. So, but we do feel like it's going to be dispersed better throughout a 225-acre site than just having one road running north and south. So I actually think it's going to help, believe it or not. And the town has been wonderful in talking through the plans. I think we see it the same way, but I actually think we're going to be able to mitigate some of that by dispersing it through the site.
Okay, awesome. Justin, we'll kind of go over to you. So you guys are obviously a national developer. What was the appeal to the Triangle, and kind of why now?
Yeah, so I'll start today, Matthew, since you used the triangle there. Start just big picture, right, and zoom in to Garner more specifically. So the company, and this predated my employment with the company, they were evaluating Raleigh, the Triangle area, Charlotte, I believe Austin, Texas, a couple of Texas markets. Very, very common competitive set, right? When we're competing for jobs and major economic development, that's often the category, the group that we're in. I think what they saw in the Triangle, and you and I know really well from our Durham days working together, is the power of anchor institutions, right? And the impact that they can have on the local economy. You talk about having incredible universities and colleges in your backyard, Wake Tech included. Those are demand drivers for all seasons. So when the party's going on, they're doing well. And when the party stops, and we're kind of in right now, we don't know which way the party's going right now. We're in a little bit of a gray area. Anchor institutions continue to support job growth, entrepreneurship, the development of companies, investment, and population growth as well. So I think it started with the anchor institutions, and then I think it was just a very simple concept that go where the people are going, right? And you touched on it earlier, even very simple stuff like quality of life, the beach, the mountains that we talk about a lot here, but I think take for granted just how impactful that is to folks evaluating this area, companies evaluating this area. Those were all factors that played into the company's decision. Specifically to Garner, and I talked about it a little bit earlier, there's the obvious stuff, right, which is the location of that site and the location of Garner within the Triangle is fantastic. You and I've talked a lot about that since you joined the chamber and took the leadership role at the chamber. Our site specifically sits about 12 minutes from downtown Raleigh, door to door, at the right time of day. At the wrong time of day, that's a different story. But at the right time of day, it's 12 minutes, and that, again, while we're the Triangle as a whole, being that proximate to one of the more vibrant downtowns in the area, is powerful. So I think it was location driven with our first investment in Garner. Again, obviously 40 and 540 coming, and I don't think you can overstate the impact of 540, and we're going to talk about that when we talk a little bit about our tenant mix here later. 540 coming through Garner and opening up the western side of the Triangle, opening up RTP, that's so critical, I think, to the current and future success of everything we're talking about up here today. The more important point that I talked about earlier, though, was what we found specifically in Garner was a very pro-business community, business-friendly community, development-friendly community, and an area that was welcoming growth, which with it comes traffic and sewer issues and infrastructure issues, but a community that was really open and welcoming to growth and to business, as evidenced by the public-private partnership that I mentioned earlier with the town.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Well, actually, transition that, for an environment for business. Chris, you're obviously running Launch now. You're kind of new to that role. What do you see as, how does that fit into kind of what we see happening here in Garner, and what does success look like for entrepreneurs after they go through the program? I know you're an entrepreneur yourself. Actually, would you mind telling a little bit about your story? I think it's super interesting, your background as an entrepreneur, if you don't mind sharing that.
Sure. So when I got out, I was in the Army down in Fayetteville. I was in the 82nd Airborne Division, and when I got out, I wanted to be a rapper. So that was a pretty good aspiration for a job when you get out of the Army. And so I ended up going back to my native New York and went to community college and made a decision that I was going to be a rapper still. And I linked up with an entrepreneurship professor, and he helped me write a business plan to be able to support myself as a rapper. And so I wrote a business plan for an entertainment company. And then I spent 25 years in the music industry, not rapping, but managing artists and record labels and things of that nature. So it is a pretty interesting full loop to go from a aspiring rapper to helping entrepreneurs.
Well, I think running a business, whether it's that or record label, whatever it is, that translates really well. And I appreciate the fact that you have that experience. I think it's going to be really helpful as people, you're not the instructor necessarily, but helping people through that program and navigate that. So, what do you see as success for entrepreneurs that go through this launch program?
Well, I think sustainability is key. I think that as I had mentioned the 700 folks. I want to make sure that everyone stays within the ecosystem. So I've become the entrepreneurship ecosystem evangelist, and that means that all I want to do is talk about an ecosystem. And for instance, here in Garner, what that means is folks that are doing the developing, folks that are doing the recruiting in, the chamber, the government. I mean, I spoke earlier about the continuity between the government, or between the chamber and the Rotary and the town. All of that support system sitting inside of this ecosystem is exactly what entrepreneurs need to nurture them along. And so as that everything else continues to develop, and as those anchor institutions kind of lock in, you're going to need the ancillary pieces across the board to support all of it. I was at downtown Raleigh, the state of downtown, last week, and people got up and talked about $6.7 billion and all these other pieces, and then they said, you know what, when it comes down to bringing someone in, what folks care most about is how many places there are to go to lunch. And so that is what is dictated when the big decisions are made. What can we do on the ground level to reach out and grab people and get them up and started here in town to support any of the big stuff that may be coming in?
Yeah, I think it goes back to what I was talking about earlier, creating that business environment for business success. Is that ecosystem that you generate, educational opportunities, networking opportunities, and ways that those businesses can succeed. I mean, that's the whole point of this, right? That's why we were so excited to partner with the town and Wake Tech on Launch Garner, because I think it's critical. And we're going to show a video here in a few minutes about what that actually means for our students that have gone through that program in the first cohort. So, awesome. So, Grady, I'm gonna go back to you. So, what made this the right time for you in Garner? Was it, was 540 part of it? I assume so. But these tracts of land have sat, undeveloped for a number of years now, and obviously pricing dictates when a developer can be successful in purchasing those kind of properties. So, what made this the time for you guys?
That's a great question. I think I might back into that question by saying when we were looking at this opportunity, I kind of played a game for about a year of just asking folks like Justin, who knew real estate very well in Raleigh, kind of reiterate a point I made earlier. I was like, name for me a site in Wake County that's 20 acres or 50 acres. They go, you're crazy. There's not one. And then I said, well, what about 20 acres? There's not one. How about 15? So I think what has made this site really special is my partner in this deal has been able to hold this land for such a long period of time and hold out and wait. My greatest critic in terms of what we do here is my partner in the deal, because their only incentive is to add value to the town of Garner because this is their home. And so, now just seemed like the time for them. And the interesting thing about it is I started my development career on a big mixed-use project at the corner of Wade Avenue and Oberlin Road in Raleigh. And at the time, the only place you could do mixed use was what was called an infill project, and that was truly an infill project. At the time, 25 years ago, this would not have been considered an infill project. Now this is an infill project. The road system, the ecosystem that's been created around it truly makes this an infill project. So you can look at a mixture of uses. You can look at enticing companies that want to be in this area that really will take this into strong consideration. So it's a great time to be in the triangle.
Yeah.
So
for sure. Awesome. No, that's great. So I'll transition that a little bit to Justin. We've been able to now. Grady's just starting, right? You guys have 4 buildings now open, recruiting for a 5th. MD Logistics is a company that probably nobody has heard of in this room, but they're a really interesting company, what they do. And let's talk about how that can lead to some really more exciting recruitments for us in the community. So talk about MD Logistics a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. Is this working? Yeah, good. Okay, thank you. So with MD Logistics, so to oversimplify it, then we'll talk about the really exciting aspect of their business. So MD Logistics is what's called a third-party logistics company. So to make it very simple, when you go to the Chick-fil-A drive-through and order your #1 combo, no pickles, sweet tea, that's my order, but I don't know what yours is, but no, I'd go back and forth on the pickles. It's just depends on how the day went, but
we already got some controversy.
That's right. That's right. But when you go order, you get your Chick-fil-A order. All of the stuff that went into that Chick-fil-A order, the way that it made its way to that Chick-fil-A, that was delivered by a third-party logistics company. So Chick-fil-A, for example, doesn't have its own logistics network like, say, an Amazon. So they rely on third-party logistics companies to deliver goods from a massive warehouse somewhere to the store, to your hand, into your car and into your hands. So MD Logistics is a third-party logistics company. They have a lot of different verticals and customers they serve, but the customer they're specifically serving out of our Garner project is the life sciences industry. So MD Logistics is actually going to have cold storage inside their facility that's going to have DNA samples stored in there that they are going to ship across the country on behalf of major life sciences companies. It's going to be used in the development of vaccines and and anticipated cures for cancer and other terrible diseases. You may give a blood sample at your doctor at some point, and that blood sample may end up in the cold storage at MD Logistics before it goes to LabCorp or some other provider. This is one that I know Matthew and I have been really excited about and talked a lot about because I think MD Logistics coming to Garner is a peek into the future of what we're going to see moving forward. So Matthew talked about the exciting redevelopment of the Kmart off Fayetteville. And you've heard announcements about a couple other life sciences projects, and that's coming. And that's really exciting for Garner. You talk about creating really good, high-paying, sustainable jobs. You talk about bringing entrepreneurs to Garner that can spin out of these companies and start companies that hopefully locate in Garner as they grow and develop over time. So MD Logistics looked across the entire market. So they looked in Durham County. They looked at one of my projects in Orange County as well. We were obviously selling much harder on Garner than we were Orange County, but they looked across the entire triangle, and they chose Garner, and they chose Garner because of labor pool. They chose Garner because of location and proximity. And I mentioned it earlier, and I think the biggest reason, one of the bigger reasons they chose our project and Garner is 540 coming through in the future. So what that allows MD Logistics to do is get to their customers who right now are clustered on the western side of the triangle. That's changing, but right now they're clustered on the western side of the triangle. But what 540 is going to have the inverse effect as well, right? It's going to draw people east and draw people to Garner and draw companies to Garner and southeastern Wake County that otherwise would have located in RTP or Durham.
Yeah.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah, please.
Sorry.
You got the mic.
Just about MD Logistics, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention this. And Matthew, you talked about this in your remarks, the importance of having an active chamber and an active town and a partnership between the town and the chamber. So we closed, meaning MD Logistics agreed to come here last fall on a really chilly, rainy day in a construction trailer looking at a building that only had site work done. The reason, I am confident in this, that the reason we closed them out that day is there were representatives from the town and the chamber there supporting my effort, supporting our effort. And I think what MD Logistics saw that day was true partnership and ease of doing business, which are critical to these companies that we're recruiting, that you're going to recruit moving forward.
Yeah, so as we transition and talk about entrepreneurship related to these things, right? We're going to have different jobs, new jobs that are coming. Chris, what are your thoughts on other things additionally to, we talked about already, the partnership for Launch Garner, but as an entrepreneur yourself, are there other things that we can be doing to help foster some of this, some other entrepreneurship opportunities for people? Should you have suggestions or ideas that we could?
The one thing I think obviously Launch is a great way to do it, and the mentorship piece that goes along with it, giving an opportunity for experienced mentors to work with new ones. A couple other projects that I'm working on are incubator and pop-ups, and those have been very successful. The giving an opportunity, partnering with either the city or one of the economic development agencies along with some private companies, and actually getting opportunities to do short-term investment or short-term rental deals for aspiring retailers or things of that nature. On an incubator side, I'm actually working with Midtown, and we're going to do an incubator for food services in the newest section of North Hills. Yeah. So what that does is it creates an opportunity for an aspiring restaurant that isn't quite there yet, where you kind of give them a turnkey opportunity to go in with a limited amount of upfront capital and a limited amount of risk. In that it's
because if you haven't upfit a restaurant before, it is insanely expensive.
I mean, if you want to do a food truck the right way, it's going to cost you $70,000. Right. So you can imagine what it is for a brick and mortar. Yeah. But I think that having an opportunity and looking at spaces that do have some flexibility and looking at maybe some of the opportunities where the landlords may have some blank spaces that they'd be willing to do some programming in. I think it's worked out quite well. All three pop-up participants in downtown Raleigh have transitioned to market rate retail spaces. Yeah. So I think it's a cool way of going about it. I think that there's, everyone is winning. Yeah. And it also looks good to have buildings filled. Yeah, of course. And I'd love to chat about that a little more. Yeah, no, it's super cool. And then kind of related but unrelated, the 4300, what is it called? 4300. Now, is that where Goodberry's is in the front? Is that the same? It's just down the street a little bit. So there's a Denny's down there, but it's it's old Kmart behind there. So It's just down the street from where the Goodberry's is. Because there's right behind Goodberry's, there's always a carnival there.
Right,
Did you
right, yeah.
I
the
was
fair,
like,
yeah.
I've never been somewhere where there's always a carnival, and I was just making sure that when 4300 came in, that it wouldn't. kill
No,
the
it's down the
carnival.
street from that.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
so it's down the street from that a little bit. Yeah,
Year-round carnivals are the best.
yeah. Year-round carnivals, I love it. So, we're running a little short on time, so I'll ask my final question of all three of you. So, if you all had a crystal ball and could look 10 years in the future, right, and the things you're working on here in Garner, what would your ultimate dream vision of success be for your project or sector? So, Chris, actually, I'll go ahead and start with you for the launch program, which is entrepreneurship in general.
I think that really having an ecosystem that is really specific to Garner, where you have that wall put up around Garner where entrepreneurship is kind of feeding itself and adequately fostering any other development that needs to happen, where there isn't a question of whether the roads, is the infrastructure in place. The question becomes, are there all of the ancillary pieces needed to sustain additional growth? So I think that, focusing on the entrepreneurship piece and making sure that happens is important for development of Garner overall, but also, other people. The average American worker or the average American entrepreneur makes 4 times that of their average American worker. Yeah. So, and really getting folks involved in entrepreneurship actually helps everyone because obviously it generates wealth.
Yeah, awesome. Great. Justin?
Yeah, so I'll kind of draw a parallel between my vision or view of success for our company and what I hope to see in Garner as well. So I mentioned in the intro, we develop industrial office, medical office, and multifamily. If fast forward 10 years from now, I hope that we're an active participant in all of those product types here in the Triangle and across the Triangle, and had successful projects in all those categories. And I hope the same for Garner, right? Like I would love to build 3 million square feet of industrial space here, and I might, but is that what's right for Garner? And that's I think another panel for debate some other time about good, responsible, diverse growth that creates opportunities for the entire community, not just for one sector. And that's where I see projects like Grady's, which I, by the way, agree with you 100%. That is it's a once in a lifetime site and perhaps not replicated on the East Coast, but I think that's part of your opportunity. Is
you could be my medical partner in 5 years.
Love it.
Making deals.
But I think that's, to pass it over to Grady, I think that's where your project has the opportunity to play a huge role in that diverse and smart growth.
Chris mentioned at the beginning of one of his comments, he talked about sustainability. So I think when we look at this and what it's going to be in 10 years, to your question, we want something that's just incredibly sustainable. Things change in the real estate business. But when we did our first conceptual plan and we laid out the big centerpiece, and we said this is going to be the medical hub of this deal, and then we ended up having talks with Wake Med, who, is just a dream of a partner in a deal, because that literally just leads to more and more outstanding growth in so many ways. Right now, Johnson County is, I think, the fastest growing county in the state of North Carolina. The reality is that the folks who live in Johnston County don't work in Johnston County. I've not done the numbers on Garner, but I know that a lot of folks in Garner and Johnston County have to commute to Raleigh to do business, to shop, to go to the hospital. So part of that sustainability to me is making Garner a town where it stands on its own. It works in collaboration with Raleigh and Durham and Johnston County, but it stands alone. It has the needs. I'll say this and I'll hush. My background is mixed use, retail, and multifamily office. I've never seen a market anywhere on the East Coast where there are 2 Targets, but there's not a Harris Teeter or a Publix. And to your point just a minute ago, Justin, we respond to growth. We don't create it. A lady that my wife works with who lives in Garner, she just retired. She called me when she heard the announcement. She said, "Grady, we need a Trader Joe's." Now you bring me that Trader Joe's, and she let me
Is this an
have it.
announcement, Grady?
No, it's not. But I'm like, I'd love to do that. But it goes to Chris's point. We have to build that system around Garner that lures the folks that we want here. And I think we have the real estate to do it. I think we have the town to do it. And that's our goal.
Well, and one of the things that I bring up a lot in my presentations is you want to recruit developers and have developers who are local, they care about the community, they're not just trying to make a quick buck, they don't throw some, sorry development down, make their money and leave. And so I think I see that from the people who are here on the stage, right? You have people who have been in the area for a long time that are doing these things, they live here, and I think that's a critical piece of that too, to get the right development and really get the ultimate goal of hitting those things in 10 or 15 years, to have that development in the community that you want to have.
You're not supposed to say that out loud because we want to welcome development companies from everywhere, but you're right.
It's a piece now, and you can have people that you partner with, but it's nice to have that as part of your development, your diversity and development. So. Awesome. I think we have one question. We're running out of time, but yeah, we'll.
Charlotte. There's areas of Charlotte. So I'm not an industrial guy, and maybe that's a better question for Justin. We're not planning on industrial on this particular site, but I'll say this and then punch me or correct me. I think that's a great way to start. You're bringing a job base. You're bringing a billboard to a community that says, we've recruited these companies that Justin's been talking about. We've recruited Amazon. Amazon could have gone many a place. There's one Cabela's in the state of North Carolina, and they chose Garner. So I think there's a limit to what can be done in terms of growth of Garner, because it size-wise is what it is. So it needs to be done the right way. But I think that the industrial uses that you've seen and the ones that will come in the next few years, I think they really provide a billboard for what you're getting ready to do next. Like I said a few minutes ago, this would not have been considered an infill site in 2000 or even 2010. Now you can't. This is absolutely an infill site with a huge interstate getting ready to wrap around it in 540. So I don't think you're going to have to do anything to prevent this from being a Detroit, because by the nature of just what Garner is, I don't think that it can be. But you tell me if I'm wrong.
No, I think that's exactly right, and it's a really good question. That's what I do that for a living. I build in industrial space, but we hear that in a lot of communities. And by the way, I agree with you that as I said, and to Matthew's final question, the growth needs to be responsible. And just because there are sites to build, I'm making this number up, but 3 million square feet of additional industrial doesn't mean that's what should go on those sites. I think you've seen a lot of that recently for a couple of reasons. Number one, and it drives other product types, but it is one of Garner's strengths, is a great roadway infrastructure. 540, 40, 70, when you have that, that's naturally going to attract industrial development. You've been hearing about it a lot the last 24 months, and that's frankly driven by COVID. And our behavior, this entire room's behavior changed during COVID. And we went to the grocery store less, if at all. We went into stores less, if at all. And by the way, I'm a huge believer in retail and the retail experience on the ground. And I do not think that retail or office are dead by any stretch. But there has been some change in consumer behavior that will normalize over time that has driven industrial development, not only in Garner, but in Mebane and Durham and Smithfield. So it's not just Garner. That's happening kind of across 85 and 40 and 77. But again, part of it too goes back to really strong town leadership as well, right? Because that's incumbent. Again, if you keep putting opportunities in front of me to build buildings that lease, I'm going to do it, right? It's how I'm wired. I'm going to go do that. But I think it's incumbent upon town leadership to be responsible in their planning, and again, open for business to all product types, not just one, so you don't become pigeonholed over time.
Awesome. Well, thanks, guys, for the insights. But everybody give our panelists a big round of applause. We appreciate the updates. So,
All right, thanks for having me.
yeah, thank you.
Started out as just a support website for parents to get, accurate information about homeschooling in the local area, and working with other businesses and other folks trying to figure out, how do I support this website and the work that I was doing. I knew that I wanted a business that I started to be in Garner.
My business started before launch Garner. I was doing it probably like 3 years when I started, but it was, small steps. And I always was looking for some guidance to ask some questions about how to do my business plan, the vision and mission of my company, and little things that I was missing, and I was feeling like lost.
I applied for the Launch Garner program and got accepted, and we're very excited about it. And Launch Garner has truly taken Soaring Eagles to a different level.
When I got the phone call and they said, Susan, you've been accepted, congratulations, I was like a little kid, just got the best toy in the world, because I wanted to go through the program. I felt I knew my business, but I wasn't strong in the business. And what I got to learn from it was my vision and my goals didn't match where I was going.
Launch Garner for me was really a great opportunity to examine this idea that I had from a real business perspective. I didn't have a business background. In order to make this center work, I really had to figure out what beyond just the classes that I was used to, what could we offer, how do we make that work, and how do all the numbers work out. So the class itself was really helpful in confidence building. It really kind of helped me put all the pieces into place so that I was confident enough to go ahead and sign a lease and move forward with this dream.
We were able to take a lot away from Launch Garner, from down to the specifics as the financial piece, getting our books situated and straight, as well as bringing on new opportunities for our program, getting our business out there, more marketable, but basically having the courage to do some things that we didn't think we could do before.
The connections and the mentorship, the Town of Garner, the businesses, the chamber, the town itself really came together to support all of the launch students and graduates. I definitely couldn't have done it without that support and the mentoring.
And I got to see such a different vision from everybody that it really puts you into perspective of going, you know what, I'm not only the one out here. I've got a whole group of people that I really enjoy talking to now. We still talk after the classes. We still see each other at the chamber and the networkings, and it's great because we can see and help each other after the class was over.
I'm so happy that I found the program and I finished the program, and now it's been very helpful.
This year was our first year. We hosted our first invitational track meet, which was the Lee Vernon McNorton Eagles Track Club invitational track meet. We're also doing other developmental and social activities. Our goal is to raise money for a scholarship, to raise it in the name of Lee Vernon McNeil and Soaring Eagles. And I don't think that we would be able to organize such a thing without Launch Garner, because before we were just kind of doing it as a hobby. Now it's more structured as a business.
We opened the doors here in March, and we started off just kind of introducing the community to what we're planning on doing here with our social events and stuff like that, and it's been great.
A lot of people think, no, I can't learn anything else. You can learn something every single time if you really open your mind. And I feel that's what this did. Thank you to like the Rotary, the Garner Chamber, the city, who put all this together, because I feel I'm a much stronger business owner and more confident, and I plan on being in this for years.
It's a lot, and it's not a cookie cutter, easygoing class, but it's definitely worth it, and I'm so glad that we took advantage of it.
Yeah, I know we have some launch graduates here, so just want to finally, again, thank the town for their partnership with this and just generally in our economic development efforts, and appreciate everybody coming. There'll be some more food and drink up here on stage for the next half hour or so for the final reception, sponsored by All-Star Waste Services. So again, thanks for coming, and we're going to open this curtain. Come up and feel free to get some food and drink. So thanks everybody for being here. Thank you.